We are rolling on record. And your first question is, what are some examples of disasters that people never think about or expect?
Yes. Most people think about the normal disasters that we experience, like floods, fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes. However, there are other emergencies that exist. Among those, active shooter incidents or random acts of violence. Those can take place at any time, in any place. Also, power outages. Sometimes they're due to a storm or an event, but other times they're due to simply a glitch in the power grid or some other external force. There are also issues such as the poisoning of the water in Flint, Michigan, which constitutes a human-caused disaster.
Okay. Number two, when disaster strikes, it is obvious that children have been affected. How can we tell?
It's not easy to tell when children have been affected by a disaster. Unfortunately, we assume that children are just small adults, but the effects of disasters on the brains, the psychological aspects of children are very, very much different. Simply asking children what happened to them is not really the answer for disasters. We need to work on trauma-informed solutions that emphasize prevention before a disaster happens to prepare kids to be more resilient.
How important is it for parents and educators to stay vigilant about their kids' emotional health after a hurricane or fire?
Most of the efforts that have been put forth to this point focus on what happens after the disaster. And certainly it is important to understand how our children have been affected and why. But again, the preventative aspects of disaster dictate that we do more up front to mitigate or prevent some of the causes and prepare our children in a way that we never had before. In the new normal of today, author Amanda Ripley once said, "We all recognize that people who are in charge of a state or a city or a business recognize that people will do their best in the worst of times. What we need to do is also recognize that with the proper equipment and proper training, people will be even more resilient if they play a significant role in their own survival."
How important is it for an entire family to be prepared for something bad, to be prepared when something bad happens or before something bad happens?
69 million children every day are separated from their parents for a period of 8 to 9 hours. Most of the time we think when a disaster happens, we'll be nestled securely at home with our children next to us. But the reality is that families are often separated by the activities of their daily lives. That's why it's important for families to have a plan as to how to reunify with their children, how to communicate with their children when they're separated, and certainly have a plan for how the family will come together as a whole when there's an emergency.
Okay.